On September 21st of 2012, Dredd was released in US theaters. While the movie was an instant flop upon release, many of those who actually did see the movie were blown away by it, and it would acquire a loyal following once it found its audience on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital downloads. 4 years after its release, the fanbase the movie has developed still demands a sequel be made. At the time of making this video, however, no sequel is in development. In this video, we will look at why a movie that has since developed such a strong following could fare so poorly upon release. To put that into proper context, we will first explore the origins of the Judge Dredd character and the fallout from the earlier adaptation starring Sylvester Stallone. Then, we will explore the release and distribution of the 2012 movie before we move on to the subsequent reasons why no sequel has been made thus far. The character Judge Dredd was created in 1977 by British-American comic book writer John Wagner and Spanish artist Carlos Ezquerra. Dredd made his debut in the second issue of the British anthology magazine 2000 AD, where his adventures have been in continuous publication ever since. Inspired by Dirty Harry, Judge Joe Dredd is an enforcer of the law in a post-apocalyptic future. In this future, America as we know it is no more. Democracy has fallen. Like much of the rest of the world, America is a nuclear wasteland, the population living in 3 separate city-states. These city-states, or megacities, are for all intents and purposes run by the Department of Justice, but due process has been replaced by instant justice, in which the police force will apprehend suspects, carry out investigations, and sentence perpetrators on the spot. The members of this police force are called judges and serve as both police, judge, jury, and if need be, executioner, all rolled into one. In other words, the judges are the enforcers of a fascist police state, and Dredd is more hardline than most. Irony and satire are touchstones of the multi-layered comic strip, and Dredd himself walks the line between hero and villain. He is a product of the system and the faceless representative of justice, which is why his face is always obscured from the reader, either by the helmet, positioning of comic book panels, or other obstacles. The audience will root for him as he puts his life on the line in the service of the people, but also be appalled by his actions when he doles out harsh sentences to decent people who happen to be victims of circumstance. If you aren't familiar with the Judge Dredd comics but think they sound intriguing, the Complete Case Files Volume 5, as well as the graphic novels The Pit and America, are all good starting points and introductory material for new readers. With the excellent premise and infinite story possibilities of the world at hand, it didn't take long before Hollywood came calling. The Judge Dredd movie was more than a decade in development, which we will explore in a future retrospective devoted to it. In the end, though, it ended up starring Sylvester Stallone. The moment Stallone came aboard, all facets of the script were tailored to him, meaning a Judge Dredd movie was forced into the ill-fitting mold of a Sylvester Stallone vehicle. As such, his version of Judge Dredd also became something of a victim and a tragic figure, which was meant to excuse his behavior before he went through his arc where was thought humility, compassion, understanding that there may be extenuating circumstances, and the joy of a workplace romance. All of which made fans of the Judge Dredd comic strip throw up in their mouths, even if what garnered the most hate was Stallone taking off the helmet and keeping it off. The movie did not fare well at the box office, received mixed to negative word of mouth, and ended Stallone's run as an action star. The fans of the Judge Dredd comic strip, of course, recognized just how poorly suited Stallone was to play Dredd, and how badly the movie missed the mark in every way outside of the visuals. But for the vast majority of the mass audience, the Stallone movie was their first introduction to the character. They had no way to know if the movie did the comic justice or not, nor any reason to care. All the mass audience saw was a high-profile misfire which did not work, and which was unintentionally funny in all the wrong places. But because the movie was the first exposure of Judge Dredd to so many, this did immense damage to the brand. To the mass audience, the term Judge Dredd became synonymous with a train wreck of a film in which Stallone screams and botches the word law a lot. This impression would stick, and it would come back to haunt the later adaptation of the comics simply called Dredd. Writer and producer Alex Garland had been working on the script for a new Judge Dredd movie since 2006, but a new movie wasn't formally announced until 2008. Fans of Judge Dredd reacted with joy and some trepidation, having been burned so badly before. Other movie fans not familiar with the comic strip reacted with puzzlement. Why would anyone want to remake that cheesy Stallone movie? Naturally, the new movie was not a remake of the Stallone movie, but a brand new adaptation of the original source material. Any resemblance between the two would be coincidental, due to both being based on the same comic strip. The new movie would even get the title Dredd, in an effort to distance itself from the earlier Stallone vehicle. Michael Biehn did audition for it, but around the time of Comic-Con of 2010, Karl Urban, a longtime fan of the Judge Dredd comic strip, landed the role. Shortly afterwards, Garland's script for the movie leaked. Confirmed to be real by Judge Dredd creator John Wagner, the leaked script titled Peach Trees showed that the movie would not adapt any of the famous storylines from the comic strip, but would rather introduce the characters and the world by showing one random day in the life of Judge Dredd, where he is assigned to assess rookie judge Cassandra Anderson. This way, Anderson would serve as the audience point of view character, and the mandatory character arc would go to her, allowing Dredd himself to go through the movie mostly unchanged. The movie was made by production company DNA Films and would be directed by Pete Travis, although Alex Garland was the main creative driving force. It would be filmed in 3D, as that was vital to secure funding so close after the release of James Cameron's Avatar. Unlike other 3D movies though, the 3D was actually employed in the storytelling used to emphasize the effect of the drug slow-mo. The movie was sold to a variety of international distributors at the 2010 Toronto Film Festival, which is why it got a staggered release schedule across the world. There was no one worldwide distributor calling the shots like Warner or Paramount, but a one local to each territory. In North America, distribution rights were picked up by Lionsgate Films. Alas, this would turn out to be extremely detrimental for the eventual release of the movie. The movie itself, however, won over the naysayers. Word of mouth from a variety of early screenings was overwhelmingly positive, as were the reviews. Despite the movie itself by all accounts delivering, many fans still worried the movie would flop. Outside of the built-in fan base, there did not seem to be much awareness about the movie. In its US opening weekend, Dredd grossed only $6.2 million. By the end of its worldwide run, it had merely grossed $35 million worldwide on a budget of $50 million. Despite rave reviews and stellar word of mouth from those who did see it, the movie bombed. Many fans were quick to point their fingers at the movie's marketing campaign. In the public consciousness, the term Judge Dredd was still associated with the cheesy 90s film in which Stallone slurs the word "le" a lot. To counter this perception and the impression the new movie was a remake of it, the movie would be dependent on a tailored marketing campaign to turn things around. Instead of each distributor all having to come up with material to do that in their respective territories, they would all get marketing material from the North American distributor, as is customary with this kind of distribution. Unfortunately, the North American distributor was Lionsgate Films. At this point, Bomb Factory Lionsgate had been struggling for years, as so few of their movies seemed to find an audience. While Lionsgate's marketing department, in their defense, could point to spending the usual dozens of millions of dollars on posters, trailers, and prints, the actual effectiveness of their marketing material is up for debate. For Dredd, the marketing campaign consisted of pre-screenings, magazine coverage, TV spots, 3 sets of posters, and just one trailer, which failed miserably to capture the tone of the movie. These posters and this one trailer were used to sell the movie not just in the United States, but in all markets all over the world. Unfortunately, the Lionsgate-produced marketing material didn't convince anyone anywhere else either. That the marketing material let the movie down is an opinion also held outside of fan circles. Karl Urban, the star of the movie, is adamant that Dredd represents a failure in marketing, not in filmmaking. But in addition to the stigma of the Stallone movie and the arguably poor marketing campaign, Dredd faced another obstacle in the guise of another movie altogether. On March 23, 2012, 6 months before Dredd would come out, The Raid Redemption was released in theaters. The Indonesian action film featured a SWAT team that raids a building block where criminals are holed up, only to be trapped inside and end up having to fight for their survival. When Dredd was released 6 months later, featuring Judge Dredd and rookie Judge Anderson raiding a mega block where criminals are holed up, only to end up having to fight for their survival, some were quick to call shenanigans and accuse Dredd of having ripped off The Raid. The sheer logistics involved would, of course, have made that impossible. Dredd had been in development since 2006, and the completed script leaked online in July of 2010. Gareth Evans, the Welsh director of The Raid, would not begin working on the script for The Raid until fall of 2010. By the time filming started on The Raid in March of 2011, filming on Dredd was already complete. After the shoot, however, Dredd was in production for more than a year, while The Raid was rushed to the market. Evans was aware of Dredd and the similarities between the two movies, and so wanted to get his movie out first. He was successful in this, and amidst a poor marketing campaign and fallout from the Stallone movie, Dredd also had to contend with copycat accusations, however unjust they might have been. While Dredd was mostly ignored during its theatrical run when it mattered the most, it did find an audience on home media, where it sold exceedingly well across all formats it was released, and it showed a remarkable staying power. Across various movie chat rooms, many newly converted fans admitted they avoided the movie in cinemas because of the Stallone movie, or because the trailer had put them off, but later regretted not seeing it on the big screen. Normally, when a movie bombs the way Dredd did, no matter the reason for it, the franchise ends right there. With the kind of home media sales Dredd saw, a sequel is still unlikely, but not entirely off the table. Since the movie's release in 2012, fans have gotten their hopes up that something might be happening several times, only to have those hopes crushed each time. What complicates matters beyond the tepid box office is the chosen distribution model of the 2012 movie. To recap, instead of one big distributor worldwide, there are many different distributors scattered over different markets across the world. All of them are stakeholders in the 2012 movie, and presumably have the right of first refusal on funding and distributing a sequel. In the event that some say yes and some say no, which is a likely one, the production company might find themselves in a position where not enough current distributors say yes to a sequel that there will be sufficient funding to actually make one, but that the bigger distributors won't pick up the slack because the most profitable territories are already taken. This problem can be overcome though, either with buyouts or by waiting for the rights to lapse. As of 2016, Karl Urban remains hopeful and committed to return to a sequel or even a TV series, should there be one, while writer Alex Garland and producer Adi Shankar appear to have mostly given up, stating that any kind of sequel is unlikely. But we know there have been talks, even if so far they haven't led anywhere. Speaking on the 2080 magazine's 2000th issue celebration, Judge Dredd creator John Wagner told Screen Geek that 20th Century Fox at one point had been offered Dredd 2 but passed on it. The script, written by Alex Garland, had featured Judge Death, and apparently Fox passed on it because they wanted more quote-unquote nuts and bolts before they ventured into the realm of the metaphysical. While Fox have a history of highly questionable decisions, it's hard to fault them for this one. John Wagner expressed a belief that everyone wants Judge Death, which no doubt many of the 2000 AD readers really do want. But if the proverbial makers of Dredd 2, already a hard sell, really try to push Judge Death to potential investors, they are not making it easier for themselves. For those not in the know, Judge Death is a recurring villain of Judge Dredd, but first and foremost, of Judge Anderson. He is an undead judge from another dimension where life itself is a crime, who periodically comes to our world to cleanse it of life. The first movie worked because it was so gritty and grounded, which fits the property. While the fans of Dredd who are also 2000 AD fans would no doubt kill to see Judge Death, many fans of Dredd the movie who've never read Judge Dredd the comic strip would likely be turned off by Judge Death showing up in the sequel, something that potential financiers of Dredd 2 are no doubt very keenly aware of. They will all want nuts and bolts, and for very good reasons. Kevin Feige of Marvel Studios fame has earlier spoken of why the hero and the villain in the Marvel movies thus far have often been mirror images of each other, like Iron Man and Ironmonger, Hulk and Abomination, Ant-Man and Yellowjacket. Feige told Screen Rant that, "You want to have characters that inhabit the same world when introducing a new world, a new mythology for lack of a better term. You want to explore that as much as you can." Applying this logic to Doctor Strange, Feige went on to reveal that, when you're teaching an audience about sorcerers and that reality, and you're going to talk about the past anyway, and you're going to get into their history anyway, much better to tie in your bad guy with that instead of laying all his groundwork of parallel dimensions and sorcery and say, by the way, a meteor hit on the other side of the world, it went under the water, and this evil thing developed. What does that have to do with magic? Nothing. That's not the way we've developed them up to this point. Granted, this has nothing to do with Dredd directly, but the message is applicable nonetheless. In the world that was established in Dredd, there is not yet room for Judge Death. He would fit no better against Dredd at this stage than pitting Thanos or even Dormammu against Tony Stark at the time of Iron Man 2. Our recommendation is that the proverbial makers of Dredd 2, whether it be in the form of a series or a movie, shelve any notion of Judge Death and the Dark Judges for now, and instead stay focused on the nuts and bolts that moviegoers responded to in the first Dredd. There is no need to rush things with Judge Dredd. He is the big baddie that could even be set up over the course of several movies, Thanos style. Including Judge Dredd too soon runs the risk of wasting him, like Warner did with Doomsday as early as in Batman v Superman. Instead, the makers of Dredd 2 should focus on stories that can be filmed mostly in camera and do not require too much in the way of special effects, and that can be done tonally similar to the first movie. Alex Garland has already expressed an interest in seeing storylines like Origins or Democracy. These might be easier to pitch at this time. Let us know what you thought of Dredd and what you would like to see in Dredd 2 should it be made. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button. Join us for spin-free news and analysis of the happenings and corporate politics behind the scenes of your favorite genre movies, as well as explorations of your favorite characters and their backgrounds and context here at Midnight's Edge.